Good morning, friends. My name is Darren St. George, and welcome to another Monday morning program with Sal St. George. If you've been with us before, welcome back. It is always a pleasure to see you. And if this is your first time, welcome to the party. This is how we start our week, celebrating entertainment's leaders, legends, and icons. And this morning is, of course, no exception. We are heading to Ellenville, New York, to return to the Borscht Belt Museum, which has recently opened its doors and is now letting us inside. If you have any questions, please share them in the chat, and I'll happily relay those over to Sal as well as Peter. Speaking of Sal, let's get to the top banana himself. Sal, Dad, are you there?
Good morning, son. How are you doing?
I'm
Oh,
good. I'm good.
and there's Peter.
Here's Peter off to the races.
Good
Oh,
morning, all.
there was Peter. That was it. We had a
There
glimpse.
we go. We're still here,
He'll be back. There he is.
All right.
completely helpless without my little grandchildren to show me which buttons to push.
Oh, that's all right. We're going to get through it. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us again.
My
And we're
pleasure.
thrilled. Last
Thank
time
you.
we spoke, the Borscht Belt was a dream. It was an aspiration you were working towards, and now you have officially opened your doors.
We have actually been open since 2023. We acquired the Home Savings Bank building in beautiful downtown Ellenville, historic district. Building is full of its own history. Way back in the day, there was a good deal of anti-Semitism, and that manifested in the manner in which business was done with the fledgling farmers from Eastern Europe. So this particular bank, the Home Savings Bank, was one of the very few mainstream institutions. And we have some old pictures of it. This was like a real stuffy bank with the starched collared bankers, and you'd be scared to go into it. And yet, in the midst of all of this, this was one of the few banks in the area that made it common practice to provide financing to the Jewish farmers so that they could expand their farms. Most of them unsuccessfully, because while the intentions were good, the area did not lend itself to traditional farming for the most part. So the Jewish farmers became Jewish innkeepers. They became Jewish hoteliers as the inns morphed. And post World War II, they became resorts and country clubs and spas with hot and cold running, everything you could imagine. They were fortress hotels, as they were called. Fortress hotels meant everything that you could possibly want. Uh, to having in my case and in Dad's case, if Dad and I were guests there and we decided we wanted to add a little bit more to the dome, you could go to Michael's of the Concord Hotel and he would fit you for a hairpiece. We're planning to get engaged. You could go to Grossinger's jewelry store, or you could go to the Concord's jewelry store and buy anything from a diamond ring to a Rolex watch. So hot and cold running everything was the motto of most of the hotels.
Peter, are any of the hotels around?
Uh, Curiously enough, Grand Mountain Hotel in Greenfield Park, which is where my family first ventured here in 1958, is still operating. The owner is a Russian fellow. He gets 100 guests from the beginning of July to Labor Day. The kids are frolicking in the swimming pool. The parents are playing cards and mahjong. There are 3 meals a day, all you can eat. It's a shadow of what it once was, but it's operating. The old Raleigh Hotel is intact. That is operating. The old Granite,
Wow.
the Hudson Valley Conference Center, just changed ownership, and that's still operating. The Villa Roma, of course, which is way off in the western part of Sullivan County, is still operating. So you've got a smattering of hotels that are operating. You've got Landsman's Bungalow Colony, which is an iconic bungalow colony in the town of Fallsburg, is still operating. It's a cooperative, but it is operating. The bungalows are bungalows. The coffee shop serves everything from hot dogs to chocolate malts to egg creams.
Several years ago, Darren and I were traveling through that area, and I stopped off to introduce him to the Liberty Diner.
Yep. So the Liberty Diner was the newer one, the real iconic diner. It was a couple of 100 feet up from the Liberty Diner, and that was a triangle diner, which if you were going too fast coming down from the entry to Grossinger's, you would find yourself parked against the wall of the Liberty Diner. And then that's long since been gone, but that was the that was one of the quintessential diners that was up here. So you would see at 2 o'clock on Saturday morning, the place would be packed with everyone from the bungalow crowds to the entertainers who had just finished their second, or in some cases third shows. So that was the place that was the place to go, along with the other Catskill haunts, Lefties for the greatest hamburgers in the world, Herbie's International, world famous roast pork on garlic bread, Jewish sin food, along with Chinese food that you could get at places like the Canton. Uh, so
There was a Howard Johnson's up there, I
yeah, as
remember.
a matter of fact, the Howard Johnson's, uh, part of the restaurant building actually still stands. That was right next to the Triangle. So when you were done eating anything and everything that you're not supposed to eat at 2 o'clock in the morning, you could go to Howard Johnson's with its would it have 100 flavors of ice cream or something like that, and you would have your ice cream. And if you decided to check into Howard Johnson's, you could check into, as it was called in those days, Howard Johnson's Motor Lodge. So the Motor Lodge was you would actually drive right up to the door of your room, uh, as opposed to the Borscht Belt hotels, resorts, country clubs, so on and so forth.
You mentioned earlier before we got on the air that in the museum, you're having an area dedicated to the comedians.
Yeah, we're working on that. We've got at Borscht Belt Fest, and again, we invite everybody to join us the last weekend in July. If you go to the website, borschtbeltfest.com, and borschtbeltmuseum.org, it'll give you all of the information. Uh, that's an interesting, there you go. That's an interesting weekend in Ellenville. We've moved it to Saturday, but we'll have events to Sunday rather, but we'll have events Saturday as well. The the volunteer firefighters who do just such a fabulous job protecting everyone who lives up here, uh, will be having their event on Saturday, and we're going to have our main event on Sunday. Although there are going to be activities the entire weekend, comedy shows, uh, everything and anything that has to do with the Borscht Belt. This is Borscht Belt Fest #3, and the first two broke all sorts of records for attendance. People came from all parts of the globe uh, to the museum to see the village of Ellenville, which has undergone just an incredible renaissance. We sold gallons and gallons of homemade borscht. Uh, we had, we
Did you
had our
bring a sample with you?
uh, I will give you all you like. Borscht is one of the. I mean, I've been a Catskill boy my entire life, and the stuff just doesn't go down. I can't even look at it. And my father used to say to me, "But it's very refreshing." I said, "Yeah, but it looks like blood with some big dollop of fat in the middle of it." But the reports are that this is like gourmet borscht, whatever that may be. So we make our own borscht. We've got our good friend Mike Dalowitz from the Borscht Belt Deli, that's in southern New Jersey, right near Philadelphia, who sells out routinely on the knishes and the homemade hot pastrami. We The other year we had the ultimate sin food. We had that lobster truck that makes its rounds. So we added some Jewish sin food to that also. We did have roast pork on garlic bread, but without Herbie's international secret recipe, whatever that may be. So lots and lots of comedy, and we like to highlight comedy because the Borscht Belt was the building block and the starting point for American stand-up comedy, uh, for the Saturday Night Live skits that we affectionately call shtick, origins in the Borscht Belt. Uh, Sebastian Maniscalco's vignettes of family life as an Italian American. The only difference is he's talking about vignettes as an Italian American, and he does an interesting little shtick, if you haven't seen his show, on what it was like to go to his first Seder. Uh, that's no different than the iconic Borscht Belt comedians, Mousy Lawrence, Jack Wakefield, Freddie Roman, who would do these little shticks, these little skits, one-person skits that would talk about their family adventures. And you look at that, and that's what we celebrate. The Borscht Belt also provided a proving ground, and if you will, and a testing center for upcoming comedians. And they were all here, from the icons like Danny Kaye and Milton Berle to
Sid Caesar.
Sid Caesar.
Yeah.
We were tumblers for the most part in
Sal St. George.
hotels. There you go.
Yeah.
So you know, the idea of a tumbler, for those of you who don't know, the word tummel in Yiddish is to, you kind of make a mess. You tummel around. So it was not unusual for the tumblers to go into the dining room, and while people were eating, and that's just a good segue into the exhibit that I'll show you in a moment, which focuses on food. The tumblers would go into the dining room and tummel the guests as they would be stuffing themselves with everything that was on the menu. Or Mousy Lawrence, the icon, who would say, "Do you want it for now or do you want it for later?" And he would say, "The Goldberg family's checking in. Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Goldberg. The Goldberg family's checking out. Get the forklift. The Goldberg family is checking out." We talk about, what happens between the time you check in and the time you check out to the circumference around your waist.
Peter, just so many moons ago, when I was a young whippersnapper, I was working up in the Catskills quite frequently, and I worked with everybody you named. I worked with them at one point or another. But I want to just tell you a story about Mousy. We were working at the Pines Hotel. I went on, I did my act, and then I'm the opener, and then Mousy comes out. He wasn't on 5 minutes, and every light in the hotel went out. They had a blackout. The only lighting we had were little candles on the people's tables. Mousy sees me in the wings. He waves me over, and like Judy Garland, we sit on the edge of the stage because nobody could leave the room because the elevators weren't running. There were no lights in the foyers, and we just sat there for about an hour and a half until the lights came back on again, entertaining the people, telling stories. And that's one of my most favorite memories of working up there.
That kind of, it's interesting because that's the kind of skill, that's the kind of improvisation
Yeah.
that you can only learn really up here.
Hmm.
The phrase "the show must go on." The show went on. In my later years, still working my way through college, although I had long since gone, I was a maitre d' at a small place called the Aladdin in Woodburn, and the MC was a real Catskill icon, whom a lot of people don't remember, but he was the master of masters. He was a second father to me, a mentor, Murray Waxman. So here we are in the Alibaba room, which was the nightclub, and the story was the Aladdin was the Lev board, and then in the 50s it became the Aladdin Hotel, a magic resort for your vacation wishes. So the nightclub was no longer, I mean, how could you have the Aladdin Hotel with the plain old casino? So it became the Alibaba room, and the coffee shop became the Mirage Coffee Shop. So, here's Murray on stage. He was the quintessential Tummler MC, uh, encyclopedic knowledge of opera, Yiddish theater star when he was a kid. And all of a sudden, um, it starts to rain, and Murray's just in the middle of his shtick, and he was not going to stop. So as he's going through his shtick, and he was singing one of his signature songs, "When You're Smiling," he walks back to one of the wings, and he grabs an umbrella, and without missing a beat, he's standing there and he's smiling, and then he turns to the band leader, and he says, segue into singing in the rain. So he's singing in the rain. Uh, and there was no other place, to my knowledge, that you could learn how to do this. And the audience, what it did, of course, was distract the audience so that they wouldn't say, "Ah, damn it, the lights are out. There's no water. There's no this.
Yeah.
What kind of blank hotel am I at?" And they were rolling. So it was that kind of proving ground, and not only for comics, for entertainers of all genres. In the 1920s, 30s, 40s, uh, you had hotels from the smaller ones all the way on up to the big hotels producing fully staged plays during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
The Flagler, for one, was a summer home for Moss Harts. Uh, Marjorie Morningstar, that was written by Herman Wouk, uh, is a Borscht Belt kind of movie. So it goes beyond the more contemporary. Well, oh, Borscht Belt, that's Dirty Dancing. It was a whole lot more, a whole lot more than that. You had touring acts. You had the Stanley Wolf players. You had the paper bag players, uh, who would do shows at the hotels. Who would do stage shows at the hotels. So you celebrate it, not just comedy as being stand-up comedy is being born up here, but entertainers from all varieties. Robert Merrill tumbled with Danny Kaye for a time at the Young's Gap Hotel and spoke fondly about Ma Holder, who was the owner. Said Ma Holder ran a place like a tyrant. She was crazy. Jan
Oh,
Pierce.
Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks started up there too.
Mel Brooks was there. The Young's Gap was the Concord before the Concord. That was the first Fortress Hotel where everything that you wanted was in. It was one of the first brick hotels that sadly closed in 1966, and that was probably the harbinger of things to come. So, here you would go to the President in Swan Lake, and Alexander Olshanetsky, who was an iconic uh, Yiddish composer and arranger, uh, was the band leader, and this short, stout guy with a barrel chest was playing the violin, and one day he was singing because that was his passion, and Olshanetsky said to him, in Yiddish, "Kleiner, du hast a große Stimme, Mr. Yazoy, young one, you have a big voice, sing on stage." And this young guy whose name was Pinchas Pearl, later became known as the iconic Jan Pierce. Richard Tucker was an ordained chazan, was a chazan at the Concord. Herman Malamud, Jackie Mason. Jackie Mason was an ordained, for real, Orthodox Jewish rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. Like his
All right.
brothers. Yeah.
yeah.
All
You
right,
wanted to
gentlemen.
show us a food area that you have put together?
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch to, let me switch to unless I screw this up over here. I'm
Here,
going
Peter, while you make that adjustment, I have a few chats. We've only just begun, and already the chat's filling up with some questions and comments, but I want to share them. Do you happen to know what happened to the Olympic Hotel in South Fallsburg?
Yeah, the Olympic Hotel is interesting. Bob and Harriet Rosenberg were the owners of the Olympic. Uh, the hotel no longer stands. It became an Orthodox Jewish camp, as many did, and I don't believe there are any buildings left. In the mid 1960s, it became obvious that the resort industry was taking a nosedive. So Bob and Harriet Rosenberg did two things that were interesting. Number one, they changed from a American plan, which is 3 meals a day, all you can eat, to a modified American plan with a brunch and a dinner. And they had it sort of like semi-self-service, and they added all you can eat shrimp to the menu. And so they, along with the Nevele, now became Borscht Belt hotels that, instead of just serving borscht, would also serve shrimp and lobster. So that closed. I'm going to say in the 1970s. It lay dormant for a number of years, and then more recently, it had changed.
Your mic is out, Darren.
I have a comment here from Robin. The festival last year tracked 8,000 people
Yeah,
to the festival. Incredible.
yeah. I mean, if you think about that, that's 2.5 times the population of Ellenville. So
And
it's it's a big hit, and we got people from all over the globe, from all over the
So
globe.
where do people are there hotels up there, or do they have to go to Middletown? What is the
No, you do have hotel space limited in Ellenville. You've got a whole lot of Airbnbs. You've got a retro hotel right up the road in Kerhonkson called the Starlight, which is a real retro hotel. You know, down to we have a room I'll show you in a bit in the museum that has that strange kind of color combination. We've got about 20 minutes away is Resorts World Casino. So there's hotel space, limited hotel space locally. We've got a lot of glamping operations that have come into being. Those have become so popular that those are actually difficult to get reservations at. And if all else fails, we are 90 minutes from Times Square via super highways. I don't know how super the highways are, and the 90 minutes is kind of iffy, but we're 90 minutes from the George Washington Bridge. So there are lots of things to do. That particular weekend, as I said earlier, our friends from the volunteer firefighters will be having their festival and parade on Saturday, and we're going to have activities on Sunday, but the height of what we do is going to be on Sunday. So come. If you are going to spend the weekend, though, I would say try to make those hotel reservations or Airbnb or glamping reservations sooner rather than later.
all
I have a
right, Peter, while
question.
you
Oh, go ahead, Darren.
yeah, Peter, while you get ready to show us the museum, I want to share one last comment. We'll come back to the chat in a little bit, but here's one. These are my favorite types of questions. I just love the phrasing, and I'm happy to share. We may even have the answer. But what was the name of the company in southern New Jersey near Philly that makes borscht and knishes? And we have a suspicion here. Was it Gabila's? Gabila's?
Gabila's still making. I don't know if Gabila's is down there. Manischewitz was, I think, in Hoboken or Bayonne. Streitz was on the Lower East Side. It might be Gabila.
Gold's? Gold's is
It,
another.
it maybe I would probably say probably Gold's, because Gold is the horseradish person. Gold makes the borscht. Gold makes the shav. Gabila, to my knowledge, I think Gabila is just the semi-frozen knishes. So I'm gonna.
Darren, as always, we have the best audience in the world.
I know. I just love it. I love the question. I love that it's about food. It's it's wonderful.
Food is our middle name,
I have a question that when I was working up there, one of my favorite hotels was Grossinger's, and I guess you knew Jerry Weiss.
Yes.
Yeah. What happened? It breaks my heart. What happened to all those 8x10s that lined the walls when you walked into Grossinger's? I hope somebody salvaged them.
Yeah, they've been a lot of them have been salvaged. It's interesting because there was a point when the hotel was in receivership,
Yeah.
and it was more or less abandoned. And people said, "Gee, this ain't nobody watching." So and they kind of looted the place. Uh, we've got some Grossinger's memorabilia. Uh, I'm thinking, and we can check this out because one of our board members is Harren Zimmerman, who is Elaine Grossinger Edis's grandson, and he may know. Uh, but there was a treasure trove of artwork in a lot of the hotels. There
Absolutely.
was a statue uh, outside Shanks Paramount on Thompsonville Road, which is up the road from the Raleigh, uh, that we actually rescued. The hotel was being demolished to make room for a Orthodox camp, and here is a statue. Not my favorite work of art, but an interesting story behind it. Uh, the Shanks Paramount had this multicolored circular. It was a front of the card room and lobby. It was one of the ugliest structures up here. And down the road, Manny Halbert, who was the owner of the Raleigh, did not really appreciate his guests driving down, this country road, and the first thing they see before they see the Raleigh, and the Raleigh was a really nice modern hotel with brick buildings. But before they get there, they had to look at this ugly round thing. And if that wasn't enough, the owner of the Paramount, Shanks Paramount, not known as Shanks, there's another Paramount, put this statue in front, uh, which I once said, do we really want this inconsequential piece of junk? Uh, so that was like the knife in Manny Halbert's heart. Not only did the guests who got off the highway or went through Fallsburg have to pass by this circular shaped thing with blue and orange and purple windows, they had to see this ugly statue as well. In our case, one of our board members and major donors and benefactors, Keith Rubenstein, whose company Somerset Properties is redeveloping the Nevele. There is a bas relief piece of art that's on one of the staircases in the lobby. And in spite of all of the years of damage and a recent fire, this thing is also indestructible. We're looking to see if it makes sense to remove that. But you had all of these pieces of art. You had particularly at Grossinger's and at another place in Livingston Manor called the Waldmere, uh, that had autographs of you name the famous performing artist, athlete, and those things were there. Most of those that had immediate and obvious value went to families. But the other stuff, you had treasure troves of stuff that adorned the walls.
All
Yeah,
right, Peter,
I
let's
remember Brown's had all the Jerry Lewis murals when
Yeah.
he went in.
Yeah, you had all of the Jerry Lewis murals that were there. Speaking of Jerry Lewis, I'm listening to him now. Let me take you on a little bit of let me take you on a little bit of a walk. Uh, I'm looking. Something just came up on the screen for Randy Lustig. A family went to Gilman's. The Gilman family, particularly Benjamin Gilman, uh, had a laundry in Middletown. So Ben Gilman was a United States congressman for like 25 years, and his family, they were actually relatives, had Gilman's bungalows. Uh, so you have a lot. Neil Sedaka's story. Neil Sedaka's wife's mom owned Esther Manor, and she was Esther Goldstein Strasberg. And Neil was well, he really was not a fledgling musician. He already had some hits, and he and Leba, who worked the switchboard, I think they've been married for 55 years now. Uh, Borscht Belt romance. He took her to the prom at Monticello High School. They got married. The reception was at the Concord. So you have all of these interesting Borscht Belt kinds kinds of romances that are here. So at the front of the museum, our gift shop, and if you get a clear picture of those posters up here, these are original posters that we had commissioned. The whole series. Some of you may remember those uncomfortable strap chairs where if you put too much suntan oil on it, you get stuck to them. This, of course, is the waiters schlepping the borscht. This young fellow carrying the borscht doesn't look very happy. So I'm thinking if he trips accidentally, then that young lady in the middle may have some borscht in her cleavage. A typical nightclub, and what was interesting, the attire that some of the performing artists wore. Many of them wore tuxedos and many of them wore gaudy jackets. And this one is interesting. This, of course, is poolside retro 50s, 60s kind of bathing suits. And this was kind of stolen from what the outdoor pool at the Browns looked like, where you had the new deluxe rooms, as they were called, with terraces overlooking. So we've got a whole pile of things. And here, of course, is Jerry Lewis talking about his adventures at Brown's, talking about the food. And I'm going to walk you through part of it. You named the big entertainers, and they were here, up to and including Xavier Cugat, Tito Puente, with Afro-Cuban, with Latin music. He used to bring Audrey as a young girl, and she would dance with him. And of course, in the middle, Joan Rivers, who actually could get pretty raunchy in her show, Uncle Milty, Milton Berle was a very, very big hit up here, pretty much through his entire career. He did a nice Uncle Milty early show, and then he did a late show. Iconic Danny Kaye. Here's the legacy of all legacies, Jerry Lewis. And let me go to the other side. So our theme plays on and such small portions, and there's and this again is I'm probably going to say 1960s, judging by the hairdos, and nice Jewish girls with their nice Jewish husbands, and of course this blonde who's over here, who looks like she had a little bit too much wine. And if you take a real close look, right on the table over here, you have an old camera. So here's your typical dining room, and it started off with the whole idea of coming up here for the fresh air, getting out of the city, and it was not just the Jewish immigrants who migrated here and settled in the tenements on the Lower East Side. You got a lot of Jewish immigrants who moved to some of the outer boroughs, who populated parts of Brooklyn, particularly those parts that were closer to the bridge, Flatbush, and then later, as times went on, parts of the Bronx by Yankee Stadium. So they came here, and it's very, very interesting because we have a kind of new concept called farm to table. Everything up here was farm to table. The roots of farm to table, like the roots of humor, up in the Borscht Belt. So, the joke was that nice, healthy, plump little chicken that you saw romping around in the afternoon, that chicken was on your plate for dinner. So you had everything fresh. I don't recall seeing frozen food until the mid 1960s, and even then it was sparse because you still had some hotels that had functioning farms. Grand Mountain, where I went as a guest and later worked in the dining room, and still my parents were still guests there. It was an interesting marketing concept because how do you keep your guests? Well, you give the kids jobs as they get older. Hillcrest Farm, which was the original farm that gave rise to Grand Mountain, was a functioning farm until 1967. So it would supply the hotel with fresh vegetables that farmer would bring down the road in his hay wagon that was pulled by an old tractor. Um, so what about,
Peter? Hey,
yeah,
Peter.
yep.
We have quite a few questions from our guests, and I don't want them to feel like they missed out on getting the right answer from the right man. So,
Absolutely.
Darren, do you want to take some of
So I'll
those?
tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come into our retro room from the from Kutcher's, and I'm going to sit in here. Just give you a quick. Let me give you a quick look. Here's the old TV set, and Jews never called suitcases. They would pack the valise. So I'll take those questions while, let me make sure I don't collapse it. I'm going to sit here in this retro room and fire away with your questions.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Peter. Take it
Sure.
away, Darren.
All right, sounds good. We're going to affectionately entitle this segment, Do You Remember? So let's see here. We have a few here. We have a comment here. I love the kaleidoscope pictures that were taken at the hotels that we have today. What are the names of the existing hotels that are still in operation in the Catskills? You had mentioned them earlier.
I had mentioned Grand Mountain, which surprisingly is still in existence. The Raleigh, which is an Orthodox hotel. The Lake House Hotel is interesting because that also Lake House in Woodridge is still in existence. As a traditional hotel, the Villa Roma, which is I guess we could call it loosely an Italian American equivalent of a Jewish Borscht Belt resort to a degree. Hudson Valley Conference Center, which was the old Granite Hotel, is still fully operative. There were, according to Sullivan County historian John Conway, about 538 or so hotels and probably 14 or 1,500 bungalow colonies. So just a sidebar, just to give you an idea, and I'll talk about Sullivan County. Sullivan County's and Sullivan County is the heart of the Borscht Belt. Ellenville was the gateway to the Borscht Belt. And even though Ellenville and the area around Ellenville in Ulster County didn't have that many hotels, you still had in the Ellenville Greenfield Park area, you still had 40 or 50 hotels. The Echo, the Melbourne, the Greenwood Inn, the Jockey Club, Grand Mountain, Pioneer, Seven Gables, Beer Kill Lodge, where Red Buttons was the tumbler. So you had a lot of those hotels that were.
I got another one for you here, Peter. What happened to Tamarack Lodge?
All right, Tamarack. Out of every hotel up here, Tamarack was my favorite. So Tamarack was right up Route 52 past Grand Mountain. Tamarack was absolutely wonderful. Tamarack Hotel, Tamarack Lodge, the Smart Country Club. And that's what the sign said. It was this green sign. And you would see it a quarter of a mile down the road, approaching Tamarack Lodge. So sadly, after Dave Levinson passed away, the hotel was sold and laid to waste, and then it was sold again. And between the ravages of age and a fire, the last owner purchased it, and there was a no burn ban in the state of New York, and he decided, well, I'll burn it at the far end of the property where there's nothing except for the fact that the wind decided to gust up. So Tamarack was a wonderful hotel. The claim to fame of Tamarack beautiful 9-hole golf course that you would see as you just came to it. Tamarack had a perfectly round and perfectly useless indoor swimming pool. The indoor swimming pool was a circle. So if you could imagine, it was like a cereal bowl. So you'd get it on the side, and all of a sudden you would be going, you'd like go down and then go up. But what happened was, uh, and Dave he was completely against indoor pool. People are not coming up here. There are plenty of things to do. Completely against indoor activities, but he had to have it because you had to, by the mid 60s, you had to at least offer it. Uh, Jews were not very big swimmers, but you had to have it. Well, I have to go to a hotel. So Tamarack now completely leveled, a second home community for the Orthodox, but they kept the name and they call it Tamarack Acres, and the road is still called Tamarack Road. Next to Tamarack were two large bungalow colonies, Homestead and Paramount, that had a deal with Tamarack uh, to be able to use the facilities, which was a great deal. You paid bungalow prices and you had the use of this beautiful.
All right, we got more. What happened to the Echo Hotel?
The Echo Hotel is still intact. So the Echo Hotel was, as you leave Ellenville on Highway Route 52, about 2 miles outside, a highway begins called Briggs Highway. And curiously enough, Debbie and TJ Briggs, TJ's family is the Briggs family. Debbie is one of our patrons and a member of our board. So if you go up Briggs Highway about 2 or 3 miles outside Ellenville, you have the Echo Hotel. It was owned by Sam and Dorothy Wagner. An indoor pool, but a more traditional indoor pool. There were four hotels on Briggs Highway that were of note. The Echo Hotel, the Melbourne Hotel, the Jockey Club Hotel, not to be confused with the Jockey Club, which was a jazz bar of sorts in Woodridge, and then farther down the Greenwood Inn. The Echo is pretty. All of those hotels, by the way, are pretty much intact. They've long since become either Orthodox camps or camps for developmentally disabled, similar to the largest one up here, which was originally the new Roxy Green Acres, and right between Woodburn and Loch Sheldrake, that became New Hope Village many years ago. But yeah, if you drive up Briggs Highway, headed from Ellenville towards Greenfield Park, it's standing there on the left side of the road.
All right, I got plenty more for you. The Grand Hotel in Liberty.
Actually, the Grand is in Parksville. So this is interesting because some of you may remember, as you sailed down Route 17, the Quickway West, going from Liberty to Parksville, that's exit 99 to 98 in the dark at night, is traveling, and it's a straightaway at that point. You're traveling on this straightaway, this new super highway, and in the dark at night, you see a traffic light. So when they built Route 17, the Quickway in Parksville, the hotel owners said, listen, we have hotels on the left side and the right side. So how are we going to do this? And somebody said, well, you're going to put up a traffic light. So there's a traffic light. So you're sailing at 60 miles an hour, and the traffic light turns to red, and everybody stops at both sides so you can cross it. So on the Liberty side, Main Street in Liberty becomes Parksville Road. You had several hotels. The largest one was the Young's Gap Hotel. And then you had the Ridge Mountain, and you had the Grand Hotel. You had Klein's Hillside. I haven't been on that road in a while, but my guess is there are probably parts of these hotels that still exist. Uh, Surprisingly, the main house of the Young's Gap, that was brick, that doesn't exist. But the old schlock bungalows that were there, that you would look at and say, oh, man, good gust of wind is going to blow this thing to Oz. They're still there. So that's an interesting trip, because in that Parksville Liberty area, and by the way, there was always this friendly battle between Liberty and Parksville as to who can lay claim to the hotels on Parksville Road. And as it turned out, the Parksville Hotelmen's Association. You got to remember, Parksville was a block long, and it's undergoing a revival now. By the way, it's a very, very interesting stuff. So Parksville Hotelmen's Association had 24 hotels.
All right, we got another one. Whatever happened to Zalkin Birchwood Lodge?
All right, so Zolkin's is interesting. Mike Zolkin is still up here. So Zolkin's Birchwood Lodge is about 2 miles west on 52 from Tamarack. And we used to, they had a good baseball team. We used to have the hotels, had day camps, part of the appeal of the smaller hotels. And even the larger ones were, the smaller ones were the family hotels, where families would go up for 8 weeks. So for 8 weeks, mommy and daddy didn't see the little ones 7 days a week, 8 o'clock in the morning, 11:30 for lunch. You wouldn't see them until 4:30, and then you wouldn't see them until 8 o'clock at night. You could put them to sleep. There would be a counselor, a night patrol. So here is Zolkin's. So Zolkin's Birchwood Lodge, typical hotel. Like Grand Mountain, it didn't have an indoor pool, but it did fine. They suffered a fire, I'm going to say, in the probably late 1960s, early 70s. But Michael didn't give up, and he turned it into Birchwood Acres campgrounds. Then he turned it into Yogi Bear campgrounds. It's still there. It's one of the major campgrounds up here. There are, if I'm not mistaken, I think there are 1 or 2 buildings that are left. Skyway Hotel, similar. Used to be the Skyway Hotel. They suffered a fire, and let me freeze it for a moment. Let me put something to rest. People say, well, it had a fire because it was Jewish lightning. I can tell you exactly which of the 5 or 6 hotels were real Jewish lightning, where a match or a cigarette was dropped. The rest of them, these were old buildings, built when there were no building codes. Handy person's work, old wiring going into new wiring, going into old wiring, old plumbing. So between that, the ravages of age, and the fact that during the winter time, you had indigents and hobos, as we used to call them, who would stay there during the winter. So it was a recipe. So Zolkin still exists. The Skyway became Skyway Campgrounds, and if you look at any of the RV magazines or anything, Skyway is one of the premier campgrounds in the country.
All right.
Peter, you look very comfortable there. Do you want me to get room service, get you some coffee?
Well, there's a tennis racket that's on. My father used to bring a tennis racket up. I don't think he ever used it. He didn't. I loved him dearly, but he didn't know the difference between a tennis.
Go ahead, Darren.
All right, Peter, we're going to have to turn this into a lightning round. We have about 10 minutes left and plenty of questions. Do you remember? So here's a fun one I enjoy. Anyone remember the Sanford Bungalows in Fallsburg, or bought meat at Nathan's Butcher Shop in Swan Lake?
Okay, so
Did you buy meat at Nathan's?
Yeah, Nathan's is interesting. Swan Lake. Let me back up for a moment. For the most part, all of these little towns were very self-sustaining, and one of the things that they had, three things that they had. One, they had a bar. 2, they had a drugstore / soda fountain, and 3, they had a butcher shop. And this was pre ShopRite and pre Tops and pre Stop and Shop and all of these other places that they have now. So and Swan Lake was no different. Swan Lake had a little general store also. So the butcher shop, if I'm not mistaken, that butcher shop abutted a chicken farm. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but Swan Lake now, all of these little towns have become summer destinations for the Orthodox community. So you still have butcher shops, albeit glatt kosher meat. The old time butcher shops, by the way, were were, I'm going to say, kosher enough.
All right, we got another Hayden Hotel in South Fallsburg.
So the Hayden Hotel is interesting. The Hayden Hotel is on Thompsonville Road, or was, and that was the first, as you were coming from South Fallsburg on 42 South, there was an infamous blinker as you would, and you're headed now south towards Monticello. You're coming up to Kiamisha Lake, where you would see the lady on the lake, as she was called, the Concord. So if you hang that left on Thompsonville Road, the first hotel that you see on the left side is the Hayden. So the Hayden is interesting because the Hayden was a time capsule, even though it ceased operations in the 1960s. The family owned it, they maintained it. It looked like this operating hotel, except for the fact that there were people there. So the Hayden let's say in the mid 1980s, one of the Borscht Belt movies, Sweet Lorraine, was filmed at the Hayden Hotel. So this was a no-brainer. All they had to do was turn the lights on because everything was there. So everything, meaning you go into the dining room and the silverware was in the servers, the glasses were in the kitchen, all waiting for someone to either buy it and reopen it as a hotel, or as they didn't reopen it as a hotel, and they made the movie. It no longer stands. Again, Father Time knocked it down, and in its place, another second home community.
What happened to the Neville?
Neville, the Neville.
So the Neville is interesting because I think I said earlier, our friend, benefactor, board member, the person who sold us the museum building, Keith Rubenstein, and Somerset Properties acquired it, and they just, as I understand, they've just overcome the final EPA obstacle. Way back in the day, there was no environmental protection. If you wanted to fireproof a building, you hose it with asbestos. Nobody died, but you can't do that anymore. So he bought it in, I think, 2022, and it's taken that long a period of time to get all the permits in place to knock it down. The Neville sadly it's just sitting there in ruins. There were two fires in the past year. Unfortunately, the size of the property made it very, very difficult to control access to. So, on any given day, you'd find squatters who'd been living there for years. The Neville is interesting. The Neville's claim to fame, it's Robert Trent Jones designed golf course. Robert Trent Jones was the golf course designer who was involved with I believe it was Pebble Beach and all of these places. We had golf courses. The Concord Monster was at one point regarded as the finest golf course in the world. And the question is, well, why then didn't you have the Masters? Because, golf was not a particularly Jewish sport at the time. And, we can leave it at that. And secondly, the Neville Towers. So in 1965, I believe it was, Neville built this octagonal shaped building. The building still stands. And concurrent with that, a hospital in Ellenville was built, and two brothers, Harry and Joseph Resnick. Joe Resnick was a congressman, and he and his brother owned Channel Master. Channel Master made all the TV antennas, among other things, and was a major employer. The factory was right outside Ellenville, no longer exists.
Peter, do you want to tell everybody how, and I'm sure most people know, how the Neville got its name?
Okay, so the misconception is that there were 11 Slutsky brothers. It has nothing to do with it. On the far end of the property, and the property is magnificent. If you drive outside Ellenville on Route 52 East, and it's going towards Pine Bush, towards Newburgh, when I was a kid, I'd say, well, we're going up on a mountain road. And there was a scenic overlook that, the phrase, on a clear day you can see forever. That's the place where on a clear day you can see forever. But you don't have to see forever. You can just look down in the valley and you can see the Neville. So the far end of the property, there's Neville Falls. So the real story is that there were school teachers on break. How many school teachers? 11 school teachers. And they took their picnic lunches, as I guess school teachers did at that time. I mean, I don't remember any of my school teachers ever doing that. And they picnicked near the Nevele Falls. And there is a plaque that's still floating around. So Nevele is 11 spelled backwards. So it has nothing to do with the number of brothers or members of the families that own the Nevele and the Fallsview. The Fallsview, by the way, to the person who asked about the hotels, the Fallsview has been operating as Honors Haven resort, spa, health facility for a long period of time. So that was the other one. So that's the Nevele. That's the real Nevele story.
All right, so we are nearly out of time. I can answer this next one pretty quickly. Will this recording be available afterward? Absolutely. All of our past virtual road trips at celebritymuseums.com, and you can see our past virtual road trips. It's pretty clear we are, oh my goodness, and look at this. They're already texting images of the Nevele. This is incredible. All right.
I'm going to, while we're talking, there's one part, we've got other stuff to see, but I'm going to tease you. So for those people who couldn't afford hotels, they would stay in lanes called bungalows. So we've got the Mahjong table all set over here. Speaking of the Nevele, here it is. There you go.
Yeah.
That's there's the tower. So while we're ending, it's almost lunchtime, so I'm gonna come into the lane over here and look at the stove and look at the refrigerator and look at the sink. And some of you may remember this. I'm going to make myself an
egg cream.
Yeah, make an egg cream the real way. And an egg cream, for those of you who don't know, has nothing to do with eggs. Not an egg in an egg cream. So I'll sit down. I'll sit down here and oh, we forgot about this. You know, I used to have to say to my mother, listen, Ma, you gotta, when I was working in the dining room, you gotta iron my shirts because, you know, nice Jewish boys have to have nicely pressed shirts in the event that the people we're serving have nice Jewish girls who they'd like to set up with us. So anyhow.
Peter, I love it all. I wish we had more time, but we already know the solution to that problem. It's simply
we're going to have to another Peter Chester hour.
That's right. Whatever happened to, and then we'll continue for part 3. Such great questions and clearly such great memories as you scroll through the chat. It's absolutely worth reading. Let me show you where you can all learn more. You can head over to the borschtbeltmuseum.org. I'll drop that into the chat as well for you. All the links from today will be shared in a follow-up email. You can also attend the Borscht Belt Festival. Certainly seems like a great time. Pop, I wonder if there's any chance we can find ourselves up there at the end of July.
I think so.
I would love to. All right. And be sure to donate. We love this history. It's meaningful to all of us. Let's support those memories and keep them alive. You can follow the Borscht Belt Museum on Facebook as well as Instagram. And you can follow Celebrity Museums. We're on YouTube. You'll see our recordings up there, as well as on X. And we have celebritymuseums.com. Our next program coming up is The Making of Jaws with Dan Bubeo. Pop, we haven't seen Dan in quite some time. You looking forward to it?
Also, we have a Titanic museum. Aren't we going?
Not the Titanic. We have a couple more that are going to be posted, but you'll see those you'll see them right here once they're listed. But yes, so Making of Jaws. Surprisingly, this is one classic we have not covered yet. Is there a gift shop? Is the last question we'll answer. Yes, there is a gift shop. It's not active on the website just yet, but if you give it a week, I'm sure you'll see it on there and you'll be able to buy some nice merch to support the museum. Peter, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful trip. We need more time.
I thank you for letting me indulge my passion. Again, as you said, lovely people who were listening. Come on up. We're here all the time. I'm an old retired guy, so I'm here all the time. And I thank the two of you, the St. George's. I thank you so much for this opportunity. And till we meet again, and it's 11 o'clock. We've got the complimentary cha-cha lesson. I got to get going. And then we've got lunch at 1 o'clock, and then we slather on the bain de soleil, broil in the sun, and then it's time for dinner. And on that note, thank
And
you
you got,
so much.
and you got Simon Says in between all that.
You ain't kidding, Simon Says. And if you beat Lou Goldstein, you get a weekend at Grossingers.
Sounds like a perfect day. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, and thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Stick around, Aaron. Bye-bye.
Bye.